a graduate student at the University of Iowa in American Studies and Theater Arts, and I will be speaking on a proposal about preferred names and accountability for trans students at the university. We are currently living in a moment where the life of trans people is being threatened by every level of government using discriminatory environmental policies. As a result, trans people continue to suffer disproportionate levels of verbal, physical, and sexual assault-based violence in schools, workplaces, and other public and private domains. This is especially true and important to talk about on college campuses. We see this happening at the national level in the hundreds of anti-trans bills being passed, some likely moving through state senates as I speak right now, or the constant debates over the mere existence of trans identity. We see this at the interpersonal level with the constant dead-naming, misgendering, and harassment of trans students. And we see this at the institutional level, with colleges who seem to think that people like Matt Walsh would be an acceptable guest speaker to invite onto the college campus. As an institution, therefore, the University of Iowa must be attentive to the way that trans people are able to navigate campus spaces. Thus, I propose that the University of Iowa should pursue a policy which advocates for allowing the use of preferred names in university documentation, diplomas, commencement programs, correspondences, and other official documentation, and creating accountability mechanisms by defining intentional dead-naming, misgendering as an act of gender-based harassment per the University of Iowa anti-harassment policy. For those who aren't familiar with the language I just used, dead-naming refers to the intentional use of a name which is no longer in use by the individual being referenced. For example, the use of a legal name or the use of a preferred name. For trans people, this can be a difficult and psychologically violent situation, which is why we're going to talk about. So first, I'll talk about name selection. When it comes to current methods of selecting a preferred name through the University of Iowa online portal, there are several options that are presented to students, which admittedly are better than what a lot of other universities offer in the CESPA. These include the option to provide preferred name and pronouns to be used by professors, as well as the ability to control one's preferred name, when one's preferred name should be used. For example, if you would only like that name to be used in certain situations for safety reasons, there are options to select that. While these options are certainly beneficial and necessary, they ignore the much larger issue of the dead-naming of students on campus. Despite the ability to choose a name that the professor may use in class, there's still the issue of countless documentation, emails, and other correspondences that continue to dead-name students. I'm sure if you ask any of your trans peers about this, they'll be able to tell you about that. There's also discrepancies in the way that the university decides what names may be used on official documents like transcripts and diplomas. For example, when it comes to legal names versus preferred names, there's no consistency in the way that this is applied from what I'm reading about. When a trans student, for example, requests such documents, they often have no option but to see and hear their dead name every time they request a transcript, have it be distributed to thousands of people attending commencement ceremonies, or receive a diploma with it listed on the front. While the University of Iowa, like I said, does have services which attempt to help students alleviate the cost of the legal name change and therefore be able to change their name on these documents, the support is seemingly offered to students who have experienced major accidents or unplanned events via student support initiatives. For students who really have the inability to pay for such a service outside of unplanned accidents, the question still remains of whether or not they're eligible for such assistance. Other barriers exist, including safety concerns for students with unsupported parents, who therefore aren't able to get legal name changes, or technical issues, given that legal name changes affect more things like insurance or tax documents, and therefore can be difficult to implement. The solution to this issue seems simple to me. There are no larger requirements, to my understanding, beyond the university that a legal name change must be used on something like a diploma. From what I've read, many universities allow for the use of preferred names on such documents like diplomas, and therefore a University of Iowa policy which allows for the self-selection of their name for these documents would be entirely feasible and put no cost to the university. The second issue I want to talk about is the enforcement of such policies. Like I said, despite the limited options that the university does have for self-selecting a name online, many fail to have some enforcement for providing trans students with the necessary steps to be able to implement such changes. I spoke to an anonymous student on campus about their experiences with using the preferred name tool on the university's website. Having changed her preferred name and pronouns before the start of the 2023 fall semester, the student began classes expecting professors to have received her name update, as it says that professors should receive. However, upon showing up to classes, they described being immediately administrator for the 2 weeks of class, including the use of female gender markers and pronouns. Upon finally looking at the courage to speak to the professor, which for a long time they were uncomfortable doing so, the student was informed that the professor was already aware of their name and gender identity via the online portal. They just wanted the student to tell them themselves, and therefore self-selected to use their own pronouns for the first 2 weeks of class. Not only was this response unacceptable, obviously, as it put the burden on the student to personally redisclose information about their identity as they had already done on the university's portal, but the response of the university was equally bad to the student. After speaking to the dean's office and the Title IX office about steps that could be taken towards correcting the incident, the student was informed that misgendering was technically protected as an act of free speech, and therefore nothing could be done about the incident. As a result, the student was forced to drop the class, even though it was a requirement, and asked to provide resources for educating the professor on why misgendering students is bad, a responsibility that should not be placed on the student who was affected in the first place. While I do think that the previous steps I outlined in terms of allowing for the self-selection of names on official documents is important, it itself is not sufficient to resolve these issues about how professors choose to enact such policies. Therefore, I also believe that the university should adopt a policy which defines misgendering as a form of harassment per the Iowa harassment policies. According to the current section 14.2 of the Iowa Community Policies on Anti-Harassment, harassment is defined as intentional conduct, including speech directed towards an identifiable person or persons that is sufficiently severe, pervasive, and subjectively and objectively offensive, that it unreasonably interferes with work or educational opportunities or benefits. That's the new Iowa Operations Manual policy on anti-harassment. I started this speech by already discussing the ways that trans students are constantly facing violence on a public and private levels, and therefore these instances should have certainly qualified as such harassment, given that the student was not able to regularly attend class due to consequence generated and subsequently was forced to drop the class. More broadly, therefore, it is necessary to update the university's interpretation of harassment policies to account for the positioning and experience of trans students at Iowa. While there's certainly no single solution for making campus spaces safer for trans students, it's an incredibly important issue that requires immediate action given the acceleration of anti-trans violence that we're seeing happening on state and federal levels now. Every barrier that a trans student must cross in pursuing their education is one that inhibits their ability to fully engage with the opportunities offered at the University of Iowa. If we're going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think that equal access to education is the primary concern of such policies, and therefore must be equally applied to trans students in their ability to engage in campus spaces in a way that is comfortable, effective, and safe for them. As we see again in news and across the national context, the violence that we see against trans people through speech acts cannot be detached from physical violence, cannot be detached from more interpersonal forms of violence, and therefore should be a concern of the university's diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Therefore, I hope my recommendations are taken into consideration for the way that trans students are able to engage in campus spaces. Lastly, I'll add that if you have a chance today, I would encourage walking around campus, looking at the sidewalks. You'll see a lot of sidewalk chalk art, speaking of it in the protest of the Matt Walsh speaker event that's happening coming up. And given that trans students' voices are something that's often not heard, I think it's important for everyone to take a look at those. So I really encourage that.